Hi, this is Annie Fox of Family Confidential, Secrets of Successful Parenting. My guest today is Matt Renwick. Matt is a 16-year veteran of the public education system. He started as a 5th and 6th grade teacher, and after 7 years, he served as the dean of students at a junior high. He is now an elementary school principal and the author of the book, 5 Myths About Classroom Technology. Hi, Matt. Welcome to Family Confidential.
Hi, Annie. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day. I know as a school principal, it's hard to schedule anything because stuff comes up. And I want to talk to you today specifically about kids and technology and what kind of things you see, mostly in terms of gaps in their knowledge that may cause some problems in school. So what do you got to say about that?
Well, it's certainly not a technology gap. I mean, they understand how to use it. They're very intuitive and they can figure things out on their own. So it's not a matter of teaching them the tools; it's teaching them how to use it. And that, I think, the gap. There's certainly a social media school gap in terms of using it more regularly in classrooms. Um, there's not a ton of teachers modeling it within the classrooms, and there's a lot of neat opportunities in which they could. So that I think is the first part because the parents aren't going to really model it. It's fairly new to them too, and they're often making some similar mistakes, I think, with social media. So I think that's the first step, I guess, for any educator out there and parent too.
I would imagine, some of the teachers are in the same age bracket as the parents of your students, and so
Right.
they might not have grown up with it as well. When you see mistakes, what kind of mistakes are you talking about?
Mostly, well, first, not. I think reading at some of the general guidelines, and I'm not talking about the fine print, but just, this app is designed for people 13 and up, this social media. And kids are jumping on at 9, 10.
And why is that a bad thing?
Well, they just don't develop. I mean, there's a reason why it's 13. There's a reason why, there's certain age levels. Developmentally, they're just not ready. And they'll make decisions such as posting something about someone else online and just really not understanding how many people can see it and how it might affect someone else. Even more minor things that they don't see as mean may come across in a wrong way. And they're just not putting a lot of thought behind what they post online on social media.
So what you're saying is that even though we've told them social media is like taking out the biggest billboard in the universe, they still don't get that what they post is public?
Right.
Well, I'm laughing, but I know there are limitations to what an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old brain can grapple with.
Right. I mean, and I'm sure you've talked about this, Annie, the prefrontal cortex, where the thing that regulates their emotions and it regulates their decision making isn't fully formed until even in their 20s. And the younger they get on social media, the more I would say, and it depends kid to kid, but I would say there's more likely that they're going to make poor decisions online. First, because they don't have any instruction on it, and secondly, they're not seeing anyone else maybe use it like they should be.
So I know that you're an elementary school principal. Usually I talk about these kinds of things with middle school administrators, teachers, and counselors. But I'm wondering, in your 4th and 5th grade population,
Hmm.
do you sometimes get disciplinary referrals or things that your counselor and you need to deal with that have nothing to do with academics because of
Yeah,
social media?
yeah, not at. And I was an assistant principal at a secondary school,
Mhm.
seventh, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, and we don't see nearly as many referrals. However, we start to see at that age level more of those types of things, more happening outside the school day.
Yeah. But
And
it bleeds over, doesn't it?
right. So the parent will call the next day and say, "Hey, I know this has nothing to do with school. However, this child said something about my child online, and what can you do about it?" And
And
it gets real tricky.
what can you do about it?
In the past, educators weren't told that they couldn't go with the student online to uh, help manage those types of things.
Hmm.
But now what they say is that even as a school educators, we cannot go online and um, even tell them to take it down. So what I've done lately is just call the other parent and say, I'm aware of this. I know this has nothing to do with school, but as a parent myself, I would encourage your child to take this down, delete it, just so that you're aware of it. And I think taking more of an awareness approach and just
Mm-hmm.
involving both families seems
Oh,
to
yeah.
be,
Sure. There are boundaries, this I understand. But when things happen, as you say, outside of school and they bleed into the school day where things are happening that's quite noticeable during the lunch period, during recess, even, in
Mhm.
classrooms, that becomes a school issue.
Right, right. And then we can take action and we treat it just like we would treat language they would use in person, or maybe gossiping or
Ah,
rumoring, and we'll treat it just like that. Um, in some cases, it actually helps us because there's kids are pretty savvy with the technology, and they'll take screenshots and say, "This is what they sent me," or "This is what they posted,"
ah,
and we have a little bit more evidence in that way, and in terms of addressing it. And then I always try to use it as a teachable moment. And I
yes.
explain to the kids and the families that that's why I have a job. Is one reason is we don't want to welcome these mistakes, but mistakes are how we learn. And if we can stop it from happening, especially when they're eighth, ninth, and 10th, when it becomes a legal type of a thing where they're committing a crime, that I'd rather deal with this now than later on.
Yeah, so I'm curious. So here you have some evidence. You've got a screenshot. It's usually the parent whose kid has been on the
Right,
receiving end of some nastiness. Of course, maybe in that dialogue that's been captured, you see that the so-called targeted kid is dishing out some of his or her own
right.
ammunition as well.
That's
But
true.
how would you typically deal with this with the students themselves if you've got this evidence in hand in
With
school?
this with the student who did
Or
that.
both kids.
hmm it really depends on the circumstances. I think if it's more mild and there's not, it's more of a going back and forth, and it's
Yeah,
more relational kinds of things.
yeah.
Well, I'll actually get the counselor involved and work with me, and again use that as a teachable moment. If there's actually where there is derogatory language,
Mhm.
where it's discrimination, harassment, and it happened at school, then we would take the steps in our district's process for that kind of infraction, just as if they would um, do it face to face.
Yeah. Are you finding then after you have one of these teachable moments with the kids involved that you've handled the problem at least with those individuals?
Yeah, yeah, it seems to take care
Good.
of itself, and we really try to create. We don't try to be the disseminators of discipline. Rather, we say, here are the consequences of what happened. Here's what could happen if you continued it. We might get the police liaison officer involved,
Mm.
but 9 times out of 10, it stops because we've created a conversation around it and use it not just to um, uh, deliver consequences, but also to help them think about the future.
So we hear a lot about restorative justice models in schools where the kids who are at each other's throats actually have opportunities to acknowledge what they were feeling, apologize for wrongdoing, and stuff like that. That seems like it makes a lot of sense to me.
Mhm.
Is that kind of a, maybe you don't call it that, but some kind of an
Um,
approach that you use to get kids to like, it's not, this was wrong, don't do it again because there are consequences, but is there a way that you two guys can find a way through this?
I think if the infraction is not that bad, if it's
Hmm.
not to the point where the relationship is just it's not going to happen, then yeah, we try to get the kids involved and talk about it, facilitated by an adult, me or a
Yeah.
counselor or our school social worker. Sometimes parents will request, I don't want my child to have anything to do with this student
Hmm.
because of what happened, and we respect that too. So we really try to involve the parents as well and say,
Hmm.
what do you wish of this to see happening? And most parents are very good about understanding that kids make mistakes, and we want to move past it. So
Yeah.
when appropriate and the transgression wasn't so bad that it's not beyond repair, then yeah, we'll
Yeah.
definitely involve them. We don't use restorative justice uh, as it might be termed, but certainly apologies of action is
Good.
something that we've tried, and
Hmm.
and that's been very helpful. And allowing the kid to choose, how do you want to repair this relationship, because
Oh,
you're
I
going to
like
have
that.
to work with them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
you have
going
to
to see
work
this
with them.
kid. This kid's in your class. or you have
Yeah.
to ride the bus with this kid.
Yeah. Or you're going to meet someone else like him or her later
Mm-hmm.
on in life. This is a good chance to practice these habits. I
Yeah.
will say in our school we haven't had a ton of these, and I believe part of it is our teachers have been really good about teaching, at least modeling, showing how to use social media. One of our teachers has a Twitter account, and she'll have conversations with the kids. I'm posting this. I'm not posting pictures of your full profile, just a side picture. I'm not putting names in, and I'm not using Twitter all day either. I'm using it for learning, and I think that makes a big difference. Just as you would read aloud to a kid, they understand that reading is important. The same thing. Seeing social media used versus just talking about it, I think makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think it does too. And so we only have a couple of minutes left here, Matt, but
Sure.
I'm wondering if there are some tips you can give for parents whose kids are just starting to be using social
Yeah.
media in the late elementary school grades, moving into middle school. How
Sure.
parents can do their part to be working with their students in the same way the teachers are doing their best, trying to kind of figure out, okay, this is part of the curriculum now at home and at school. How do parents do a better job getting their kids to become responsible digital citizens?
I think first modeling what it means to be a digital citizen. I mean, the vast majority of adults are now on some social media, Facebook, Twitter. I mean, it's how we communicate uh, a major way for most of us. So really modeling it, and that starts with not using it all the time. I read somewhere
Yeah, a
where,
great model is like to get your hands off of it sometimes.
yeah, just
And
like
that's great.
yesterday was Sunday, and I took a break from social media. I put my phone away, I put my laptop away for at least half a day. I had to do some work, and just sitting down and playing games with the kids, and our kids are 7 and 9, and just taking some time to be there with them. If you're bored, don't feel like you've got to take your phone out to alleviate the boredom. Be bored, and show kids that it's okay to be bored,
Uh-huh.
and you can let your mind wander. I think beyond that too, then uh, having conversations with your kid and not admonishing social media and saying it's bad or good. I mean, it's a tool and it can be used for either. So, once they start asking, I want my own phone, I want to get on this, just having lots and lots of conversations about it. And I think finally too is it is always okay to have your child's password to any social media they're using when they're living under your house, up to 18, I would say. There's no reason not to, especially if you're footing the bill. There's no reason. I have a 9-year-old. He'll be in fourth grade next year, and he's already talking about devices, and we're talking about getting him a Chromebook because they're doing some work with Google Docs. And so, again, really being intentional about what we're getting, um, and really doing the research yourself, and just being a model for the kids.
This is a really good tips. I really appreciate this, Matt. Before I let you go, because I hear your kids in the back and I know that you're
Sorry.
off and you have, no, it's fine. It's real.
Yes, it is.
If you could let us know where people can find out a little bit more about your blog and
Sure.
how you write about this stuff as
Yeah.
a public school administrator.
Yeah. Well, my blog is readingbyexample.com, and I'm on Twitter at readbyexample. So my focus is more literacy and leadership, but I've really started to incorporate technology with it. So my most recent post was technology for the sake of technology, and it was a real brief post, but talking about don't bring tech just because it's shiny and new and it looks cool, but really be intentional about how you can use it for good, such as creating a website for a school that would introduce new students and new families, give them a map, a welcome video, and really be purposeful with it. So I post a lot about that kind of content on there. So Twitter and my blog, Reading by Example, great place to get a hold of me.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for being an educator.
Thank you,
and
Annie.
for being very mindful about this it's now part of our job description, right?
Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, I get sucked into it just as much as anyone, so
Yeah.
I've just always been working on it.
Okay. Thanks a lot for your time today, Matt.
Thank you, Annie.
Hi, this is Annie Fox for Family Confidential. To learn more about my work with tweens, teens, and their parents, visit anniefox.com. And check out my parenting book, Teaching Kids to Be Good People, Progressive Parenting for the 21st Century. And my latest book for tween girls, the Girls' Q&A book on friendship, 50 Ways to Fix a Friendship Without the Drama. And please review our podcast on iTunes. It helps other people find the show, and we like reading them too. Family Confidential podcast is produced by Electric Eggplant, creators of books and apps for parents, kids, tweens, and teens. And tune in next time when my guest will be Dr. Laura Choate. Laura is the author of Swimming Upstream, Parenting Girls for Resilience in a Toxic Culture. Until next time, happy parenting.